Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. This is the Willpower Podcast. I'm happy to be here. Happy that you're here too. I wanted to come in, check in on you. It's been a little bit, and just see how everyone's doing. I hope everyone out there is doing great. Hope you're staying sober. I hope everything's going perfectly well for you. And if it's not, then well, I'm glad you're here. Those of you who saw my last episode, I with James, it went great. He was a terrific guest, like super motivating talking to him. He's one of these people that you look forward to finding as a guest because he has so much experience and he's been through so much. And it was just fascinating to hear his story. And I apologize that the first 20 minutes was cut off. That was unfortunate. He was on his phone, and the first 20 minutes he was kind of walking his dog, and I don't think the signal was that great, so it was cutting in and out. And then when I went to upload it, a lot of it was lost. But once he got back to his house and the Wi-Fi kicked in, it all picked up. And so you did catch a little bit of it. Unfortunately, couldn't. The beginning part was pretty good too. But thank you for watching that. I appreciate that. So what's my topic today? So today I wanted to talk about weddings or any kind of celebratory event when you're getting sober. It's really hard. I noticed myself, especially after that initial year, right after I got sober, right when I woke up from the liver transplant and I dedicated my life to this thing, I found myself in this weird situation where, I didn't know how to, it's so weird. Like I went my whole life using alcohol as a crutch for every social situation, which I'm sure a lot of you do too. And I couldn't imagine going to any kind of big event, where there's that many people and there's so much on the line when it comes to having a good time, that I just always had to get obliterated, honestly, before every wedding and during the wedding too. Definitely during the wedding. And I was such an alcoholic, I would drink before the wedding too and after the wedding. I drank literally all the time. It was a mess. But so that's what I want to talk about today. Like, what do you do after you get sober? Like, how do you go to these events? What do you do? What are some strategies you could use? And I'm going to try to think of some and kind of impart my wisdom of what I've learned throughout the years. And so, I used to, so when I would go to weddings, oh my God, I would get so drunk. It was embarrassing. I would make a fool out of myself. I would think I'm this like fantastic dancer, and I was like this great joke teller, which I'm not even good at telling jokes sober. So why would I assume that I'd be good at it when I was hammered, right? But those are the things that we do though when we're insecure. We don't know who we are, or our identity. We don't know like what's going on with who we are deep down, right? So especially for weddings, I mean, I really love to drink during weddings. I think of all the events, the social events that existed, I would put weddings as like a top three events to get absolutely smashed to. So what do you do when you get sober and you go to a wedding, right? I mean, like can you have fun? Like that was my first instinct, right? When I got sober, I remember thinking like I had to go to a wedding. I was only 6 months, I think I was 6 months sober by then. I had the liver transplant. I was just getting healthier. And in my head, I thought I was like this, I thought I was like a lot, I thought I looked better than I did. I tend to do that. My wife would laugh at that, but I tend to do that a lot. Like I tend to think that I look better than I do, which is actually probably a good thing. When you're trying to get sober and you're trying to get your life together. So I went to a wedding. So this is what happened. So I went to this wedding, and you would think like after going through a liver transplant and awaiting a kidney transplant, this was in that little weird gap, those 6 months gap that I had to wait for the kidney transplant. I went to the wedding and I was like, okay, I got this thing. It's not going to be that hard, right? I mean, like you just went through hell. Like how can you even like think about drinking, right? Just because like they fixed everything that was down here, my organs, everything, like it doesn't fix what's in your head. And that's like why it's a huge part of why I'm doing this podcast, is because just because you get a liver transplant or a kidney transplant, or both, like in my opinion, right? in my situation. It doesn't change like your personality. It doesn't change the things that initially what made me an alcoholic. So you really have to be super mindful and change and think about like, okay, if I'm going to go to a social event and I'm going to be sober, how am I going to approach that? What can I do to like make it as easy as possible so I don't fall off the wagon? So for me, I went to that wedding and that first wedding, and it was hard as hell. Like, oh my God, like every instinct in my body was like, okay, I can like run away from like the group that I was with and go get a drink, you know? That's all I could think about. It was like on loop. Like I couldn't get out of that loop of just like, well, I can get away with this. 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 And I can't stress this enough. Like you have to get that thought out of your head, because if you have that thought going into it, like, oh, maybe I can get away with it if I go to this wedding and maybe like someone won't see me sneak a drink or something, like then you're not ready to be sober. You just simply aren't. Luckily for me, that first wedding that I went to, like 6 months after the liver transplant, I had a good support system. I had my wife there, I had close friends there, and that made a huge difference. But if you are someone right now who's watching and you are going through a big social event like a wedding, this is what I'd recommend. First of all, go in there knowing that it's going to be really hard. And trust me, it's going to be really hard, because you're going to have to, one, show up, right? You have to show up dead sober. And being sober at a wedding it's already hard to be sober. And then when you go to a place that basically the whole point of being there is to celebrate and get obliterated, like I said, it's you have to know that going in, because it is going to be hard. So this is how I handle it. So when I get into that mode, or when I get into that feeling of like, oh God, the alcohol is coming, it's coming. I know it's going to come. I know I'm going to like slip. I'm going to mess up. What I like to do is just take like a 5-minute break, just do some like inner breathing, like kind of meditate for a little bit and just think, okay, like this is hard, but I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And there's like that self-talk about how you can just beat this thing and just get over it and just get through it. I'm telling you, it really does work. Also, a nice little trick that I did was, instead of, I didn't want to be known as like the alcoholic who had to get a liver transplant and now here he is at a wedding. No one knew that story of about me going into this wedding that I was going to. So I wanted to act as if, right? So what I would do is I would just go to the bar. I would order just like a seltzer water, or I think I was drinking Sprites actually, because I love sugar, and whenever I can get away with it, that's kind of like my vice now is sugar. And I think a lot of alcoholics can join me in that one. It's like a huge dopamine release that's similar to alcohol. So anything with sugar in it, for me, it does the trick when I'm getting those like super bad cravings. So that's what I did. I would go to the bar, I would order a Sprite, and then I would just kind of like go back to my table and kind of like sulk, like, man, like everyone's having such a good time with, and I'm not, or whatever. And that was a really hard wedding. Like that first one, that initial wedding was like super hard, I remember. And then just recently, I'm almost 2 years sober now, and I had another wedding last weekend, and oh my God, let me tell you, like, totally different experience. The urge is always going to be there no matter what. And, it's hard. It is. It's hard. When you're surrounded by people having a good time drinking, you feel left out. You really do. And there's nothing to fix that, honestly. But the only way to kind of get around it, I'd say, is just do it. Just do it. Just show up and don't drink. I know that sounds easier said than done, but let me tell you about my experience. So I go to this wedding that I just went to last weekend. It was out in New York, so it was fun. Like I didn't know anyone there, and I was like, okay, like I'm gonna be me. I'm just gonna like show up, be my true authentic self, and just hope for the best. And man, let me tell you, I had a fantastic time at this wedding. I really did. Like I had a couple of urges, and at one point I think my wife even thought, she maybe I snuck off and I got a drink, like, but she then initially was like, okay, no, no, he obviously wouldn't didn't do that, and I didn't, but that's the thing you have to deal with, like it's gonna be hard, but it was amazing. Like I did it. I went and I I was doing all the things that I would typically do at a wedding for all those 30 years before, when I was drinking. All those fun things that you do at weddings that are like awesome, like getting on the dance floor and like doing like a break dance or just making a fool out of yourself in, like a very silly way or whatever. I was doing all those things still and having a blast while doing them. And not only that, like even after like getting on the dance floor and ripping it up, right? I was having like very meaningful conversations with people that I probably would have like if I was like, I think about all the weddings that I went to and how drunk I got. And I remember thinking like, I don't remember anything about that wedding. I remember going. I think I remember what suit I wore. But other than that, I couldn't tell you like when they cut the cake. I couldn't tell you, if they threw the bouquet. I couldn't tell you, what the groom was wearing. Like all those things, like all those little details of a wedding that you kind of want to take in. You want to like listen to like the best man speech. You want to listen to the bridesmaid speech. You want to see the mother, the father, give away the groom or the bride. And it's really like powerful stuff going to a wedding dead sober. Like you really can take it all in. And that's what I was doing at this wedding. I was kind of being mindful, sitting there, present, like still having that like that bit of like, "Oh, I feel like I'm missing out." But as the night went on, I tell you, I was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna try the food. Like that looks good. That looks good." I think my wife and I think we tried every single food at this wedding, and we just made like a game out of it. You just like how much can I don't know if she was doing that too, but I was like, okay, how much fun can I actually have? Like, let's see what I can do. And yeah, like, I was on the dance floor. I was talking to all these different people that I wouldn't normally, I had no relationship with, honestly. And it was fun. It was really genuinely fun. Like I had a great time at this wedding. But I did those tricks though. I went to the bar. I got like a non obviously a non-alcoholic drink, and just kind of like nursed it all night. Just kind of like walked around like having a drink that looks like an alcoholic drink, but it isn't. And you just act as if, just go and just pretend like no one needs to know. Like no one needs to know why I'm not drinking or if what's in my glass is alcohol or not. Like so. I think that's more in our head. Yeah, as the alcoholics, I think we're the ones that put such an emphasis on. I don't know what the word is, like not wanting to be like singled out because of something. I think that's just like in like human nature. We just don't want that. And when you have a problem with drinking and you are actively making steps to alleviate this anxiety that you have with not being drinking when everyone else is, a lot of growth can happen. And that's how I felt after this wedding. I felt myself like growing in the sense that, wow, like look how present I am. Like look how aware I am now. Like I used to be so hammered, blacked out, drunk at these things. And here I am like catching every moment, eating all the great food, having genuine conversations with people I didn't know, talking to the bride, talking to the groom who I never met. It was awesome. It was incredible. It was remarkable. It was so powerful and meaningful and just just a great experience overall. So that's what I would say. That's kind of all I have to say. Is just I was so worried. I used to be so worried about going to like big events like weddings and things and not being able to drink. And now I look back and now I'm thinking, what else can I do? Not, what else can I do? Like my next thing I want to do is like go to a concert and like see how that feels, right? And just be present and mindful of like, it's so good to be alive and it's so good to be at these joyous occasions and really in the moment. And that's what you get when you get sober. You're really present. And then when you're lucky enough to be at something like a function like that, appreciate that function. Appreciate that someone took the time to invite you to it and be respectful of like that decision that they had to make. And, because I think about all the times that I went to weddings prior, like I wasn't being respectful. I didn't treat the people there with like the presence of being, right there, having, like honest conversations. Like I wasn't doing those kind of things. So, there was some serious growth there. And I'm looking at you now, like there'll be growth in those really hard moments when you're just getting sober or you've been sober for a while. In those moments, there's some serious growth that can happen. And you look out for it in a good way. Like look out for those moments because they're so special and they're so precious and we should never take them for granted ever. So next time you go to a wedding, order a non-alcoholic drink. It can look like an alcoholic drink, but just, but no one else knows, right? Do the little, maybe a little 5-minute meditation. So it just kind of calm the nerves, whether that's in your car or whatever. And, have an exit strategy. If it gets too hard, have some kind of like exit strategy. I was thinking to myself, like, if I was to do a wedding by myself without my wife there, I think like I would have like a reward at the end of it. Like I'm a big sweets guy. I was just saying, and so I think like something like rewarding yourself with like a really special treat after going to a wedding that you didn't drink at. Rewarding yourself because of the good thing you just did. Even though you should be doing it anyways, but it's good to give yourself a little reward after you do something very difficult, right? So that's it. I just wanted to come on and say, just because you're going sober, it does not mean you can't have fun. You can have fun. You can have plenty of fun. Trust me. I had a blast at this wedding. I really did. And then my wife and I, after we went to New York City, which I haven't been to, honestly, like I literally haven't, like I grew up in Boston. I don't know if that's just like, it's like a Boston, New York thing. I just didn't want to go. I don't know. Man, I had a great time with my wife. We did everything together. We went out to the city. We went to Times Square. Like, as like, so I didn't love Times Square, but whatever. We went to the Central Park. Like, we were holding hands. It was just like a beautiful weekend, like one of those moments that I don't think would have ever come to fruition if I didn't maintain the sobriety the way I am and start this channel and really try to get this message out about how truly special it is to be alive and how to be so grateful about our existence and being sober. It feels so good to get sober and to be sober and to be that person to honestly like when I was, this is another thing I actually wanted to say too. When you're at a wedding or any kind of function, like a concert or big whatever, and you're looking around and you see like hammered people, ugh. I mean, like some of the things that they're doing is so wildly embarrassing that it put things into perspective for me. Like I started thinking like, oh my God, like how many times did I embarrass myself out on the dance floor in like a bad way? Not like a funny way like I was doing at this wedding, but like just completely like falling down, my shirt's all wet because I have no idea that like I spilled like 12 drinks on it, or I bumped into like some bridesmaid and she spilled her drink on me and she was hammered too. So, like all those like stupid conversations that I had or the dumb thing that I said, guess what? When you go sober, that doesn't happen. You know why? Because you're sober. You're present. You're mindful. You're right there. You're with everyone, but you're also having a good time without having, the inebriation of or that crutch of having alcohol as that social anxiety deterrent. Okay. So that was it. That's all I wanted to talk about. You can do things sober. I'm telling you, life is good. Doing fun things that typically you would drink at, they're just as powerful and I'm sorry, they're more powerful. It's a better time. It really is. I had such a great time. So everyone out there, love you. Thank you so much for watching and look forward to making more videos. All right. Take care.